Great Tuesday. Welcome to the No Others podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm joined by my two beautiful co-hosts, Rachel and Jess, Esther. How are you all doing today?
Doing great.
Beautiful day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So let's get started by just stating our spiritual energy numbers from 0 in the moment. From 0, life sucks, to 10, being life is awesome. What did you say you're feeling right now in this moment?
Well, I'm at a 10, and I told you before, I've been playing with that concept a little bit, and how can you not be a 10? You can't. If your brain says you're not, you still are. Right?
Right. Then your brain's just in the construct of you're not when you're not. Right. Yes. I too am a 10.
Yeah.
I love that answer. And I join you all. Go ahead, Rachel.
I said, and I'm conscious of it right now too. So that's a bonus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like to say I'm a 10. And to your point, the engineer in me, I don't see a logical reason to choose. That's what you'll be doing to be a lesser number. Say I'm a 7. That's a choice. And the question becomes, why are you choosing that? Now, after you go to a list of gratitude, which is what I do every morning, here's what I'm grateful for. My height. Not my height, don't say my eyesight, my ability to hear, see, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have sound mind. Once I complete that list, then I'm always at a 10. That's what centers me in that state of gratitude and being a 10. And then everything else from that day just is going to happen. Life is going to happen. This is going to happen regardless. It's just that you start off the day with a 10, or you start off the day as a 5. That choice is yours. And then having to end the day, I always believe in doing something. I had a 5 that day. Let me do something that makes me raise my level to a 10. And it might just be something simple as sending someone a song or a note, just thinking about you. Just something to say to help raise my vibration so my whole day won't be that 5.
Isn't that awesome how just an act of service can create that sense of gratitude and love?
Absolutely.
For me, it's go out and sit in the mornings now that the weather's a little warmer for me, and just listening to the birds. I just love that. And it gives me a fresh start on every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our podcast is called the No Others Podcast. So Rachel, why don't you walk us into where that title comes from and significance of it?
Well, No Others comes from me coming across this book while going through my son's belongings that have been stuck in my storage unit for far too long. A little thin book, but I came across it and it stood out to me. And I thought, oh, I'll set that aside. And I finally started reading it. And I'm not even through it, but it's just one of those things. You ever pick up a book and you just hold it and you feel it. And the idea, and I'll just say it in my words, the idea in this book is how she talks about the Black slavery in the United States. And she talks about how the early colonies or colonialists and others othered Black people, and how we as humans choose in our mental construct to other things, just as a means of justifying our hierarchy, superiority over something else. And so I've started thinking about it not only in the terms of the Black slavery, but also, it goes in so many different directions around the world. The, enslavement of, you name it, whomever in the mines, the people, how we as humans have othered nature, and even within social settings, the racism on the planet, the I took it at the time when I first started reading this, I was really looking into spirituality, um, the communities of people who are claiming, oh, I'm spiritual and I practice spirituality. And at that time, I took it into that area, and I thought, well, I've met so many people, and they're just like, well, I'm a high priestess, and you have to follow me, and it's like, no, othering, it's everywhere. And then I thought, well, what would it be like if that went away? Honor everything. I mean, even AI, like, I know you do a lot of work with the AI King, and people are othering AI. It's everywhere, and it's just this mental thing that we've developed to justify pushing something down. Or, I don't know, you have better words for it, maybe.
I noticed it. I notice in our language as well. I notice when people are othering that there's an us, them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The polarity, and that's something I've been toying with too for many years. I've studied all kinds of forms of and modalities of spirituality and healing work, and as both of you are aware of and have done yourselves, and there's always this polar opposite, like the good, the bad, the evil, and what if we could bring it together and weave it and walk that line and be aware of, something, there's a connotation on something, but still just be able to walk that line, walk the ridge, and just enjoy the view.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I kind of want to build on that by saying that I think a lot of people, what that creates in people, that othering now, it creates in people's psyche this need for belonging. And this need for belonging is now instilled in us at a very early age because of this othering. And so now you have this need to belong and to fit in. You don't fit in. I can't find my tribe, as people say. And the belonging now becomes whether you're joining in your family, if you can't find that your place in your family or your community or your school or your church or whatever the group is that you are looking to belong. And what I've learned through this journey that I've been on recently, this is through my own spiritual growth, because I didn't have the words for this, or I would say the understanding of this 6 months ago, was that it's not about belonging at all. That's where you're wrong. The belonging creates a lack. And then it always puts that anxiety there of always having to be accepted by someone. And then someone can then define what you need to do to be accepted by them. Whether it's wearing a red hat or whether it's wearing a cross or whether it's wearing any kind of symbol that you want to wear, that you're told to wear to identify your belonging in that particular group that you're in. And people don't realize it goes to the point. I was walking through the parking lot the other day, and somebody had a commander's symbol in their car. And I'm saying even that, the sports team is a belonging. Now you belong to that. And then you start putting that symbol to start separating yourself. This is my team. This is who I support. And that just continues to create more and more division. And then you're able to sow more and more hatred through that division. Certain teams are supposed to hate each other. Then they wonder why there's violence at the stadiums. This is where I believe that the only way to really, to your point, get to the point where we no longer are doing the othering, is to get to the point where your identity becomes to be fully human as you see yourself. And not by any of these divisional constructs. I call them forced tribalization, that they construct those upon us. They say your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, your ethnicity, your country, your status. I mean, what is an immigrant at the end of the day, really, other than somebody's political creation? And then we subscribe to that definition and look at things from their perspective, where you had people that was here prior to that. So there's no logical justification. It's just somebody decides, this is my rules, this is what I want to implement, and it benefits my agenda. People start to critically think through things. They can see And I want to wrap up my point by saying this: if you ask yourself these key questions, what is this othering and identity that you've chosen? Does it bring you peace in your life? Does it make you a kinder person? And is it helping you fulfill your purpose?
Mm.
The answer is yes to all three, then stay in that othering thought process.
Mm.
But for me, I realized it wasn't bringing me peace. It wasn't making me a kinder person. And I wasn't able to fulfill my purpose in life until I gave up the construct of even defining myself as a Black man by my race. Again, I'm not saying my description may be Black man, but that's not my identity, that I look at the world through that lens, and then which forces me to see everybody else as others. If I see myself as a Black man, then you are by immediate definition an other.
Yeah.
But if I see myself as fully human, then you are also a human as well. And then we can deal with each other on a different level, energetically wise, love energy wise, and acceptance wise.
I can't wait until fully human is actually on a checkbox. You know, when I'm going through and I'm like marking my gender, my color, and like I'm waiting for this day that I can just check the box of fully human.
That makes me laugh because when my kids were young, you know, we'd go to the doctors and they'd have all those little check boxes, and I wouldn't check them, and I would write, because there was that last one that said alien, and I'd check, they'd be like, Mom, and I'd just be like, I don't want to fit in any of those boxes, and I don't want you to either. And I don't know how that affected them. It seems to affected them pretty well, I think.
I think so. I think that was pure wisdom.
Absolutely.
Not just aliens, but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
but for a mother to even give permission, you don't need to fit in a box. You don't need to belong to any of those. Based on like this outer construct that you see. Those are not who you actually are.
Yeah. And I am seeing in those, I'm in and out of the medical world a lot these days, as you know, but I am seeing more and more of those forms offering, I choose not to answer this question. And I always click that one, which is that is there. But to speak, King, to speak to what you were saying about lack and that mentality of lack, I had one of my first yoga teachers taught me in class. It was the philosophical yoga, and he said, we're born into lack. And I was like, what? And he said, you know, from the moment you're born, you are seeking food, and you receive your food when you cry. So you're crying out for the bottle, or for your mother's milk, or however it is for you when you're born, and you're crying out because you're in lack. And so he says, he was teaching that you're born into a world of lack. This whole world is designed that way. The construct is there from the moment you're born into this. And I always want to be the rebel, and I'm like, well, how could that shift? How could that be different? How could that be not true? There's got to be a way that that's not true. And I mean, and we are, and that put me into the idea and the thinking, the better thinking, in my opinion, for myself, that, we're just part of everything here. Animals are born into survival just like we are. We have to eat to live. Plants. So why is it that we as humans have to present as higher than and other the natural kingdom? We're part of it. We are it. Yeah. So the lack thing stuck with me.
I can hear Bella in the conversation.
Like, me too.
She's like, yes, thank you.
Held up, and she's like, I want to play too. Come play.
But, where that lack comes in is, again, I refer to this dark energy matter that's always been here since we've been here in our souls has been here on this planet, in these skin suits, as I call them, that within this dark energy matter, we allow ourselves to be othered so much that that forms, as Carl Jung talks about, our shadow. Because our shadow now operates within the other. That's its language. That's where it excels, in that space of dark energy, and being able to see us separate, and then controlling our thoughts and our ego, to the point now people think nowadays, I've heard a lot of folks saying this, well, I'm going to kill my ego. And they say they go through these different steps to kill the ego, and they actually believe they've done that. It's like, well, it's not about, and from my understanding and my belief, again, I'm not speaking for anyone other than myself, but the way I choose to believe is that you have to work on you as a person through your whole life. There is no, I say it, I've done it, I've changed. To your point, you constantly have to keep growing. What level of knowledge I have right today is not going to be the same that I have next month. And I'm going to make sure of that by continuing to learn and gain wisdom and grow, and my perspective may change. But as of today, my perspective is to believe that if you were to focus on lack, then in the othering, then I see you as being disconnected from. And that means that I'm going to give you pity from a charity standpoint. It's a pity thing. I feel sorry for you. And nothing wants to be felt sorry for. Everybody wants to be looked at and respected for their human essence, or their spiritual essence, or their life essence. And from every animal on the planet that wants that, is soul's essence is to be seen as an equal. Don't treat me any different, treat me with love. And we have our boundaries. Like I walked past geese today on my walking path, and these Canadian geese, and they're very docile and it's on the grass. But when they have their ducklings, that's when they come and let you know your boundary is getting too close. You know, they'll come out and attack you, and you're a much bigger animal than them, but they still do that because they're letting you know there's a boundary. But my point I'm making is, once you get past that, then the geese doesn't hold you in their mind as, here's that human again. Now we got to create laws and things. The geese just lets that go like a passing cloud. Okay, boundary established, you respected it. Now harmony with nature continues. There's no need to look at lack. It's, if I help someone else, I'm helping someone else because it empowers me. And as human beings and as physical essence, as spiritual creatures, that elevates our spirit anyway. Think about how much joy you've seen videos where if you see a person out at sea and they have a dolphin and that person's cutting the dolphin that's entangled in the net, how you feel when you see a dolphin actually break free and swim away. Like it all does something for our minds to lift our energies up when we see just examples of love and kindness. And that's where, if you're living from a lack standpoint, you're not going to express and feel it in that same energy.
Well, it's interesting, King, that you bring up the animal kingdom and that way that we understand the boundary and the natural order of and respect boundaries of other species. And then to find an unsheltered human who's in that same position. Do we honor those same boundaries when they're out in nature?
That's a great point.
That when the othering comes up.
And that othering is why we don't. We classify them as homeless. And we have a whole now playlist of judgment that we have associated with that description of homeless. Homeless, lazy, crazy, made bad choices, maybe on drugs, probably poor kids or poor parents, all the things you just make up stories in your mind to justify your lack of empathy and connection to that individual.
Yeah, I think that, Jess, you had a story that you told me. I think it was your friend Donna who shared this with you, and I think it was about you feeling sorry for something, and I can't remember the whole story. And she was like, "Don't you dare feel sorry."
Yeah,
and that really did with me, because I was always, one to be like, "Oh, not that I felt sorry, but I could empathize, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we were we were in Bali and there was this puppy who was just emaciated. You know, there was like the pussy eyes and I mean, cutest little puppy, but really in the suffering. And yeah, a few of us were connecting to the puppy and wanting to go, you know, like rescue. It's like this immediate, like, oh, I got to go save the puppy. And she was very clear, like, don't do that. And then I had the question, like, why do we not put that sorry on someone? Why do we not like put the pity or feel bad for? And then very quickly, I got that karma back where I was making a decision and that sorry came directly back on me, where people were feeling sorry for me. And I got that that anchors me. It actually keeps me in that reality of being othered.
It prevents you from your own evolutionary growth.
It does.
And then what if there is no such thing as evolutionary growth? Maybe we go back to like isms.
Hmm.
You know, it just is. There's a lot of people around the globe that a lot of tribal people that I can't recite who exactly are at the moment, but you know, it just is. That's how they feel. It just is. They don't take a side. They don't do the othering. It just is. That's just how it is. But I can see how you can take that to, you know, a detrimental stage also. As with anything, like what we're talking about, this spirals out into just
Everything.
you know, I see this, oh, it just is. Oh yeah, is it just is? Or, you know, can we move it to this side? Yes, but ultimately that's what all the sages and the gurus and, you know, all the famous scriptures teach is to not choose a side, to observe, to be the observer.
Hmm.
You know, it goes back to that article that I sent you guys, the Carl Jung's philosophy about the feminine, and I think it was the 4 stages of the feminine. And you know, most people reach the Mary stage where we want to help the world, we want to help everybody and everything, but you're still choosing a side by doing that. You're choosing the side of
Others.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to help the world because my version of the world says that it has to be changed. Whereas the reaching the Sophia stage would mean I accept the world as it is and I am part of that. And I change in myself these perspectives and I change this language in my mind and my mental construct to view it from that place of beauty and awe and love. And that's where I know a lot of the Native American tribes have said, walk the beauty way and see the world for its beauty. And there's so many angles to this. It makes my mind spin just.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if you can even speak to that a little bit with your current experience today. No.
I'm definitely notice it everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, because I've chosen. I'm. Well, I guess our viewers don't know that I'm under traditional cancer therapy treatments, and as a result, I've lost much of my giant hair that I've had for all my life. I have less hair now than I had when I was born. And that's a number one stigma for someone who's going through treatments. And I go places and I get the look and I see it and I'm like, whatever. And I'm trying not to other them because I remember I would be curious, you know, and I think if I get in a situation and I'm in a public setting and I don't know someone and it's a stranger and I'm in close enough proximity to them, I'll say hello and I'll just start a conversation with them, and that dissipates the othering because I see that I'm not something different.
Right.
experiencing something different than they are at the time, but I'm not by creation something different. And that's yeah, that's one of the things. And then the what do I do about it? There's nothing I can do about it except experience it right now, and that's the ism part of it. And in, and eternally, with the eternal internal part of me, um, see it as the ism, see it as the experience, and allow it,
Mm-hmm.
and walk, like I said, walk that ridge line and keep. For me, I choose as best I can to walk that way of seeing the beauty, seeing the love, seeing the, and love is included in beauty for me. But first and foremost, personally, I've had to see it in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the world is absolutely a reflection of what we're experiencing inside internally, because, going out in public and seeing those looks, I'm like, why do I have to see the looks? Why can't I just look beyond the look and see the flower? And so that's what I've been working on, now that I'm well enough again to get out in public. I'm consciously training my brain, or my ego, maybe, if you will, and King used ego, and I don't believe in killing the ego. I think it's there for a good reason, and I need to have a healthy ego, not a killed ego.
Yeah. I had a similar experience, Rachel, so I'm relating to you so deeply right now. A few years ago, I had another friend who was undergoing cancer treatments, and she was ready to shave her head. And so I did that experience with her. And I had a very similar othering experience that you're talking about, where I went from feeling very connected with the public to being othered very quickly, where people would look at me and then look away, like they couldn't look in my eyes. I couldn't, until I would open my mouth and actually connect, and they would see that I'm human and I'm still okay and I'm still functioning. There was that stigma that would automatically just other me. And in a sense, it actually was an egoic death for me, because I had so much connection with my exterior appearance at that time. So then to not have that exterior appearance and get the impact of it through othering, it actually did humble my ego. So I think it was kind of my path to humbling myself.
It really made me think back to, like, where did this come from? And my whole life, people have said, "Oh, your hair," and I'm like, wow, I allowed the outside world to train me in a way, to program into me and instill that as part of my identity. And and then it made me look into all these other areas of my life, like how much I allow the external world to create my internal identity. And I think that that's part of what all of these spiritual teachings and teachers have said along the way about, killing the ego. But, and like you said, a portion, maybe just the unhealthy aspects of the ego. But then going back to othering, we're othering the ego,
right?
That portion of ourselves. And it's just, it just makes my head spin. Like I said, just
It does.
bring
It
it
does.
in.
Because after I went through that process, then I also had issues, like by even creating a persona, like expressing myself, because then all of it is ego, right? So it is that fine line
But
of
who
balance.
really, like, underneath all of it, who are we really?
Mm.
And I personally, that to me is something that I seek. That's a truth that I seek in this life, in this time and space. I seek to know who I truly am. What is it underneath all of these constructs and all of these programs and belief systems? Who is it that I truly am underneath it all, without the distractions?
Yeah. Isn't that what this is about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting a lot from that. I want to just share some thoughts because I was thinking about this early on. You all talked about the Sophia stage and just being, and we go back to lack for a second. And you think about, nature doesn't do things because it thinks it feels sorry for people or there's lack. Like an orange tree doesn't give you oranges because it thinks you're lacking oranges. It just grows oranges, and you're there to how you experience that is how you experience that. And if we look at things that are suffering and say, I'm going to feel sorry for it because I see it as separate from me, then you will see a caterpillar in a shell and see it struggling, and let me cut it open so the caterpillar can get out, and you stop it from becoming a butterfly.
Yeah.
It has to go through that process, just as a woman who's pregnant. You see a woman who's in pain, because of the birth of a child, her body's changing in month 4 and 5. You say, well, you got to get that baby out of there right now. That woman's suffering, no, that baby has to go through that process. So that's where just being is, at understanding at a level that you're not here to rescue people because you see them as separate. You're here to coexist with everybody, and because you're quantumly entangled. And if you think about that as you begin to continue to grow, that applies at different levels of your spiritual maturity continuum, how that resonates with you. Like, for example, being the observer and saying that there's a thought in my mind that says when somebody calls me a racial slur, as the observer, I can say, they call me a racial slur. I feel anger and let that go. Or I can say, I feel anger and then go with that. But then understanding that there's going to be consequences with that if I let that drive me to let myself say, I identify with that racial slur. First of all, I accept that as their description for me to be triggered by that. And now I have this thought toward anger, and I'm going to move to that thought. And see, we don't all make that conscious choice. We make those choices unconsciously because we've been programmed our identity since birth that you should. That you should be offended if someone says this. And this should be your appropriate response and action. And you got to ask yourself, why should that be the case? Why should I behave in a manner that's going to be a decrease? And that's why I believe that, my goal is always try to simplify it as possible for my own ability to move through the world and navigate the uncertainty that life is. But the blessing that life is as well is that there's 4 ways to look at being fully human. Number 1, energy is everything and everything is energy. Number 2, energy is in constant motion. It's either increase or it's a decrease. Number 3, you focus on the increase. Number 4 is we identify as fully human. And when you look at everything as either increase or decrease, it puts everything in really perspective because everything on top of that is just noise, right? The reason it's a decrease is really irrelevant. Like somebody tell you hurt me, then you keep trying to get to the understanding, why did I hurt you? Why do you feel hurt by that? When you understand it's just a decrease, okay, now you can ask yourself, I didn't mean to create a decrease. We are going to create decreases because we're human. We don't know one another. That's just a function of moving through life and making decisions based on the knowledge we have at that time. So there's always going to be decreases that we cause in people's lives, but the growth comes into play when you stop and ask yourself, what did I do to cause that decrease? And what can I do to move so I won't cause one in the future? Right? And then you start catching yourself, and you won't do it in every situation because, how we've been programmed and conditioned, that's going to come out. It's like if you smash your finger in the door, you don't want to cuss in front of your kids when they're little, but you may yell out, because that pain. But as you're getting older, you know how to deal with that. Now you can muffle that scream. And that's the growth. It's making those choices to say, here's what I did last time, and here's what I'm doing now. And I'm experiencing that. I'm witnessing that. And I see that I have the ability to make that choice, as Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response. That instant to say, what am I going to choose in this decision?
And I think that's the real opportunity with evolution. Rachel, you brought up, like, do we need to keep evolving? I think that's the opportunity we have now as fully human beings.
I think we evolve like the same idea, like I was saying earlier, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Mm.
And it's the more conscious we are, the more I believe. Here's my belief system that I stick to is that we are creators, and the more we are aware and conscious of creation, which can only be created through energy, right, or frequency. Um, the more we're conscious of our creation, the more we can create, the more we evolve. But to seek out evolving, like I'm
Mm.
to evolve, you're not going to evolve. There's like this conundrum, like I'm going to do this, but that
It's like
just
that
limitation.
Chinese finger trap thing. Like the more you try and pull out, the more it's like it's an attachment issue. Even like what King was saying with the anger, it's like someone says a racial slur and the anger comes up, but are you going to identify with that anger? Are you going to hold it, or can you like lean into it, allow it? And maybe that's the key to evolution.
Well, and then there's the idea that I played with for many years that put me into a state of depression where I thought, oh, I'm going to observe the world. Um, and I'm not going to engage in a story. I'm going to be that observer. But you have to engage in a story. You're a creator. That's what a story is. It's a creation. And if you're not creating, you're swirling in a stagnant pool and it just doesn't, there's no air. It's not being aerated. The water becomes stagnant. The algae starts to grow and it starts to choke you all up. And that's no good either. And then so I personally, on my journey, I took it to, this was many years ago, and it stuck with me, and I realized it in recent times that I did this. I said, okay, if I'm a creator and I'm a fragment of the creator, the original creator, and I'm just like a fragmented piece of, or whatever you want to call it, of the creator to become my own creator, and on and on and on. So if I trace it back, who I truly am is a piece of the creator, and if all of this is an illusion and that I'm just a piece of the creator created as an illusion because I was the creator, I'm all alone. And all of this is an illusion. And I was devastated by that.
Mm.
That's all there is. That this is all an illusion and I'm completely alone. And then I became angry about it. And then I learned that my anger is an umbrella for despair and sadness. And you look around in the world and people who are irate and angry, look at that and look how much pain that they're enduring.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, anger is like a false emotion. It's the umbrella for hiding something, basically.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I believe that too.
And I can only speak to my opinion too, like that whole story about me being the creator. And then, but taking it a step further down the line, after I got over my othering of myself, basically, I realized that the connection, you can't create without connection. I mean, you can create, but what's the sense? There's no connection. But then you take it to the pendulum there, and you kind of can't create without connection. Like I need a crayon to create a picture. I need you to create this podcast. We literally can't connect or can't create without connecting. And then so what if we have this creation that falls apart, or we get swept away with something that may not be viewed as something that is beneficial or moving in our evolution? Well, that's not true, because we can either learn from it or let it knock us down. And when we get knocked down, what happens? We have that connection and we're uplifted again somehow. And we see that somehow, even if it's just subconscious.
Mm.
There's just so many different cycles to everything. But connection is key.
I agree. Connection is key as well. I mean, I think that connection is key. So to the point of you're saying this, you have a painting behind you, and I want you to share the story of that painting. But to the point of we need connection in order for it. The person who painted that painting, if they just left her in their basement and no one else ever saw it, then it lacks that connection for the beauty to come out.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, one element of it is it's done and it's beautiful in the basement, or it can be expressed. And that's how I see us as creators. We can have thoughts in our head and hoard the creative energy in ourselves, or we can, through creative liberation, express our voice and let the world see it. That's where that observer choice comes into play. And I believe that the shadow now is determines how much of that creativity you want to be positive in it. Right. And there is never getting rid of the shadow. The shadow is a part of who you are, as a part of your psyche. It just becomes to the point of how much can you observe along the journey to say, I'm going to spend more time choosing decisions that are better for me instead of decisions that are just in the moment. And sometimes in the moment decision is required. You know, like if you are driving a car and you crash and someone you love is in the car at that time, that instant reaction of let me get this person out as quickly as possible, that needs to be there. We need that instant reaction. But it's the goal is the growth, I believe, is that you learn how to make a different choice each time that you go through an experience. That's where the wisdom comes in. You know, in that way, like if you bang your hand again, you know, from that point forward, you're gonna be very mindful of that drawer. It closes fast. It's not gonna catch you too many more times. You realize I need to get my hand out of that drawer, and it's gonna become instinctively that you can grab in the future and never get your hand banging that drawer again because you've learned to grow and adapt to the point where it's even unconscious in your actions.
Yeah. Can I reflect on that for a moment? And because I just noticed this with Rachel. You know, I've been a friend for maybe the last maybe it's been a little over a year, and been on this journey with you, Rachel. And this is an area that I have seen very clearly with you, where you come into a moment in the medical system and get information like it's the end of the road, and you're like, aha, I've been here before. I've heard this before, and it's not true.
Right.
And there's like a pause and a wait and a real clear truth response. Sometimes there's like oh my, that just hit me really hard. I have a reaction. And, you know, we deal with that. And then there's also this like real truth of your experience right now, and how I've personally observed you just call it what it is. That's not my truth.
Yeah, that's not mine. That's your truth. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Jess, you actually witnessed that at one point when somebody I didn't even know, I was in the hospital and Jess was there in the room with me, and this PA comes in and states definitive statements that she has first of all, no right stating, has no idea, clearly never read my files, and just haphazardly states these comments as if I'm not going to be alive by the end of the month. And I was like, what? Excuse me? And it lit that fire inside of me. And yeah, as ill as I was like, whew, the flame starts, the blowtorch was on, and it's like, okay, I appreciate you coming in here and checking up on me, you know, and I'm not stating this verbatim, but I'm paraphrasing what happened. I'm like, I understand what your thoughts are, but we have no information on this, and this. And until we have proper information, there is none of that. So your time here is done. Thank you very much for looking in on me. Bye. And out she went. And of course, my husband was willing to stand up and be like, put his chest out and do the right thing of protecting me, which wasn't necessary. And I was like, okay, let's calm this down too. But that was just and it happens so much in the medical world. I can say probably every single time I engage in the medical world in an appointment or some sort of something where I enter into anything medical, I have to say something for them to stop and think about what they're saying to me. And that's not because they're trying to be wrong or trying to be hurtful or trying to be anything other than what filter they're using to come at me. And I've learned to understand that. But it's everywhere. It's not, we can, like, everything is everything. And I'll say that a million times over. It's everywhere we go, no matter what one person is dealing with. Mine at that in a lot of cases happens to be in the medical construct, but people get it in the corporate construct or the housing construct or whatever, however it is. I've experienced it in the family construct, it's there, and it's how we choose to keep creating within ourselves. That's where it begins.
But one of the things I want to point out, and I'm glad Jess brought that point up, because you have God is tears under your name, and Jess and I launched a campaign that we wanted to lift up a deserving soul, and that energy came out of I'm still in the quest that I want to continue to keep emerging more every day. Haven't gotten to the point yet of just being, but that's my intent, because I'm an engineer and I think about always things in that process and how to grow until it just becomes habit. But now it has to be intentional and mapped out. And in that journey, what I realized is that I wanted to figure out how can I continue to do love energy every day. So I believe I did that using David Hawkins' map of consciousness scales, which he gave a numeric value to thought energy from 0 up to 1,000. And he put love energy right at 50%. And he put thoughts of greed and jealousy down at 20 and 30, 40%. And that lets you know lower thoughts create negative energy. And so for me to raise my thought, because he called most people are operating at 300, which is willingness, acceptance. The love energy at 500. The best way for me to move up my energy to 500 and keep it there is through random acts of kindness. And that began to grow into being more intentional with truly helping another individual, because I see the humanity in them, and I want to do that. And in doing so helps me because I see that we're all connected. And having that thought process, I mean, Jess comes along and she puts me to that test. Because you can put that thought intentionality out there, but then executing that is a whole different thing, right? And she says, well, I have a friend named Rachel that sounds like this could be perfect for her. And she and I began to co-create around that initial intentionality. And that led to creating a deserving soul. And then for me, even developing even further, saying that as a part of my way of being, I'm going to govern my life by the law of service. And law of service is always looking for ways to help others. But the term we created was deserving soul, because you can't help everybody. It's just impossible. But now we're going to be specific and say deserving souls. Now, what makes a soul deserving souls by our standards becomes a question. And for us, it was having someone who, if we help them, is going to impact others. So it gives that exponential growth, that quantum growth. So just not helping someone just because they need it, helping someone because they deserve it, because they've done the work before, and then helping them then allows them to do the work even more. So it's kind of like putting gas in a car. Car is not lacking fuel, but it needs fuel to go, right? And understanding that is the context of how this works. And as we created this, learning your story, and I want you to talk a little bit about that and what you've gone through flying to Europe to have surgeries because of your health crisis. What made you deserving in my mind was because of the strength that you still were in that space, in a foreign country, all that uncertainty, all that trust, all that faith, all that going through your mind, the financial experience, then the pain on top of that. Now you're dealing with doctors in a foreign country, trusting that they can be ethical. You don't know if they got standards, and all these things, and you still have the wherewithal, the presence to say, how can I help others in this situation? That's what makes you deserving. So that's what makes me say, I want to help this individual, because for you to be there in that moment, and we have gave you all the grace to be selfish. Don't worry about you and how this is going to impact you, and how do you get yourself out of this, and why is this happening to you? And I'm sure those thoughts are there, but you chose that thought as in that moment. That's why you're deserving soul to me, and that's where we want to continue to do things to lift you up. And I just want to make sure I state that clearly to you and let folks hear that, because I found that in doing so, and I want to make this point as I wrap up, what I realized throughout my life is that when I'm stressed out and usually depressed or worried, it's because I can't solve my own problem. So you unempowered to solve your own problem. That makes you stressed, that makes you worry, and gives you anxiety. But we are naturally, to your point, co-creators. And if you shift your natural being of being a problem solver for someone else, it immediately changes your state. It gets you out of your head and your problems and feeling sorry for yourself as a victim, and empowers you to be a co-creator and a problem solver for someone else. And that lifts you and lifting someone else. And that's where that quantum entanglement is.
Definitely.
That's definitely where we have been entangled.
Right?
I know when I've been going through things, Rachel has put herself in my shoes and still been of service, even with what you've been going through, Rachel. So I see you as such a bright example of this. And it's not like a self-abandonment. It's not an othering yourself. It's taking care of yourself and still leading your own truth while outreaching your hand and supporting me as well. And I feel like that is just that's why you're at the center of Goddess Tears. And I'd love to hear more about your vision and this origin of your legacy.
Well, Goddess Tears. Sometimes when we talk about Goddess Tears and I hear what you have to say, I have to remember again, like that victim mentality starts to creep in, and I start thinking, oh, I'm the one that all the charity's coming to, and I start feeling that way, and it's like, no, it's not coming to me, because anything that comes to me filters outwardly. If I'm functioning in a healthy manner, not even physically, but just ismly, spiritually, I guess you could say, if I'm allowing that give and take in a healthy manner, the one that I know, that I've come to know in a really hard way, the more I am able to open up and receive, the more I'm able to give. And I've learned it the hard way. I've my life. Even though I have received, I look back now and I can respect all of the gifts that have been given to me, but I was not able to be open to receiving them. I was too focused on giving, and so focused on giving that not taking in to receive, to give to myself. The receiving is giving to myself, which is replenishing myself so that I can give to others. And that's the basic mentality for me behind Goddess Tears. But I was very, very ill, stage 3 cancer, and I did an emergency surgery after almost dying on the flight overseas, because the U.S. medical construct would not allow for a surgery that I knew I needed. I was being sent home with a bottle of pills to basically suffer, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it to myself, which was the selfish part of it. But more importantly, I could not see any way of putting that on someone else to take care of me during that interim of that suffering. It was so intense and so time consuming and so when I found out that I had an opportunity to go overseas for and have a surgery, I took it, and I was not in any condition to be flying. Um, my literally, it united my ex-husband and I again. Strangely, so all these little gifts come from things that we perceive as something we've othered. So I have a gift now where I have my former partner in my life again, and it's been, as every, it's been. I mean, I can't imagine that not having that support. So anyway, I'm in another country, and I've received all of this help to get there. My kids put together GoFundMe's, and I'm thinking, what do other people do? The whole time I'm like, our system is broken. It's utterly broken. I have all these medical professionals coming and going from my room. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks prior to going to Europe, and I have these medical professionals coming and going and telling me definitives, and I'm like, no, these are not definitives. These are things you've been taught in an educational setting that you don't know definitively. And I've had several of these things shown to me in recent times to be completely true, that they were not definitive. So there's that. Then I went the whole holistic route on that, another area where that was definitive, and I learned the hard way on that one because I was Miss Holistic and Miss Naturopath, and I was like, I'm following this one. I know this one. That one was proven absolutely untrue for me. So I had the surgery, and I'm like, all these people have tried to support me, the medical people trying to support me, even though I know that it wasn't right for me, and I'm sounding like I'm complaining. I know they were trying to support me. I know my friends and family were supporting me. I know the holistic world was supporting me. It didn't work for me. What they were offering, what they were pushing, that they knew. And so I'm laying there trying to, number one, get over my anger for the push, my anger, and then where that anger really came from was me coming down on myself for believing in something else that somebody else was trying to program me. So I got over the anger, and I'm like, okay. So I came to the point of, the gratitude. And when I got to the point of the gratitude, and the realization that constantly giving means constantly receiving, I was like, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do to help somebody else who's going through this? Because if I had somebody helping me who had this experience, I might have been in a different space. Financially, psychologically, all these different avenues, navigating, being an advocate for the insurance system alone. But I didn't have that. I had to figure it all out. And when you're really, really sick and you're in a lot of pain, you can barely even navigate half a day. So I'm laying in a bed, and I said, okay, I have to do something. And so I said, I'm going to start a nonprofit and to help other people. And at the time, I thought only just women with breast cancer. And of course, then I'm like, scolding myself. No, of course, I want to include everyone that I possibly can. But right now, I can only speak to my experiences. So right now, I can only speak to women with breast cancer and my experience in that area, until I have other people coming in and other connections, which obviously is the key, to help other people. So God is Tears is designed to help navigate that, and it was born in the hospital bed as I was recovering from a major, major surgery, cut from front to back to front. And it was life-saving surgery for me. I wanted to pay it forward. Didn't know how, still don't know how. Still am working on it, and it's evolving. I no sooner made the decision to commit to that. And I had a message from a friend of mine in grammar school who was like, "How are you? Oh my God, I can't believe, I finally made a connection." And I'm like, connection. And I said, I just was really blunt and really, I don't know why. I usually hide, my personal life from people. And I opened up and I was like, well, this is what I'm dealing with. And I'm literally in a hospital bed as we're speaking. And I literally just had a major surgery. And this is what I want to do. And this is the idea. And I just started writing and saying all these things. And he said, oh, I can help you with that. My area of business. And I was like, okay. So I knew, I went back to the knowing of, synchronicities aren't, they're not just coincidences. They're stepping stones, and they're signs. They're signs from the universe that you're moving in the right direction. And I had not been moving in the right direction for a long time, stagnant in that water that we talked about earlier that was becoming stagnant. And things were starting to fuel up again. So Goddess Tears was born. And I met Jess through a network called Dreamweaving, and we hit it off, and one thing led to another, and I met King, and there's so many connections there. I mean, I could talk for hours about this, but ultimately Goddess Tears is a nonprofit that I have established very slowly, having no experience in the business world, but every experience in the experience world that I'm experiencing. So I want to help people out. I want to help them navigate the things that I've had to deal with. And the more I talk to people in similar situations, even less intense similar situations, they're still struggling terribly trying to navigate these things. And originally wanted to help from the financial standpoint, because I had to spend every bit of money I had to save my life. And that shouldn't be, but people helped me. And instead of taking that victim mentality around to, okay, I accept so that I can build, so that I can
Well,
give to.
unfortunately, Rachel, I'm going to cut you off, but your microphone is going in and out. There's some some interference, and then we were kind of missing most of what you were saying.
But it's okay.
We got that part.
We got that part. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, Goddess Tears is a give. It's a give in paying it forward for what's given to me. That sums it up very simply.
Yeah. And I love what you're sharing in that there's a receiving, that there is a receiving for you. And the more that you open to receive, the more you can give.
Yes.
And so there's also that component to Goddess Tears of you receiving the support you need at this time because you are still in it.
Yeah.
You are still navigating this live, right? And what a resource for everyone to be able to tap into the world that you're experiencing right now, for you to open up and share it, and to be able to receive now. I'm asking for all of the support that you need right now to come to you. That you have all the emotional support, that you have all the connection, that you have all the financial resources, that you have all the medical aid, that you have all the family members, the friendship, that you receive as much as you give. And that by your receiving, that others will also have that opportunity to be held during these times. So thank you for creating Goddess Tears, and thank you for breathing into it so that we could also come to this space and enliven this opportunity.
I think it's amazing how one thing can set off such a creation to so many other things. Like, I look back and I see, I've often said that my life is created by following the dots, connecting the dots. You know, like those little connect the dots that we had as kids, the little books.
Yeah.
Go to the next dot and see what it creates. We don't know what it's going to create until we connect all the dots. And some people have said follow the breadcrumbs, but connecting these dots, I joined dream weaving. I didn't know you through that. I ended up going and having this creation come to me with Goddess Tears. You knew about it, and then I think it's been almost 2 years since I've met dream weaving, and then
Yeah.
it's been a year since I went to Colombia, and I'm in Colombia at Mountains of Hope, and you say, well, I'm going to visit some friends in Colombia, and that brings your next dot connection where you meet, and
Yeah.
then here to visit me a year, 8 months later, and you introduced me to King, and then here we are in this triangle. It's a triangle that it happens to be my favorite. I don't know, my favorite thing. There's just so many synchronicities, serendipities, connections.
Yeah. It's
It's
divine.
it's magical to me, yeah.
We are divine creators.
And staying open to it is so key. Even it's so hard to stay open to these things, navigating what I'm up against.
Yeah. And if I can just share, it's been such an honor to be with you these last 2 years. I have witnessed you go into 2 extreme dips with life. You know, when you arrived at Mountains of Hope in Colombia, you arrived in a wheelchair. And you were there for a short amount of time. And when you left, I was just like singing your praises. It was one of the reasons that called me to Mountains of Hope, because I was like, she's water skiing. Like, what happened that you got your clarity on who Rachel is? That then that leapt you, and like you leapt from that into another year of life, like full out living. And then it came back again where you're like taken into the storm, and the same situation, like you're in it and you're like at that breaking point and you just come up. So like, what an honor to be able to still be here after those 2 big dips, and to know that that's life. You know, we're going to continue to go through these challenges and we're going to get through them together.
The storm metaphor is perfect because that's how I see it energetically. It's like a tornado, and you get sucked into the tornado, and whatever happens in that tornado, nobody knows because you're the one in there. And for me, something happens where not only do I have to make a choice, and I choose to keep creating in this timeline, but I also not endure. Well, I do endure in a massive amount of power and energy being thrown at me because it's a storm, it's a tornado. So I'm in the force of that much energy and that much intensity, and you choose to utilize it or you choose to succumb to it, which you almost do both at the same time also. And it becomes a fuel, and you get spit out, and you look at the storm next, the tornado where you've just been spit out of, and you say, I surrender, I give up, or you say, I surrender and thank you for all that energy, and I'm going to keep moving. And I mean, that's the best that I can explain it.
That's good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Rachel, for your presence, for your continued commitment to service, commitment to being fully human. That's why, I focus on spreading the word. There's an alternative to what we've been told by the construct about who we are, the identities we've chosen to accept, and how that's a 50% energy drainage on who we are as individuals. And if we achieve creative liberation by allowing us to let that go, that's just negative energy. And then we tap into another energy source that lifts us up to the point where we can really be our true creative self. And as we begin to wrap up today's show, again, I want to thank you, Jess, for joining the show. Bring your energy, bring your presence as well. Help
Thank you.
anchor us in love energy. And as we close out our show today, any closing thoughts you all want to share before we wrap up to our listening audience?
I just want to share my gratitude to both of you and to anyone who came to listen to us. Other, my gratitude for another day of being here.
I share that gratitude. I am so grateful for this space and this conversation of not othering. I just saw the live clock said 111111.
Excellent. Excellent. And I conclude by saying that, again, I'm glad you all chose the word grateful, because gratitude is a state I believe I live in. And I do work at it to live there. It's not a state you can just live there casually. You have to work to sustain it. It's like swimming, keeping your head above water. But when you can keep your head above that water, you feel that oxygen, you can breathe. And that's what the state of gratitude feels like in that metaphor. And until next Tuesday, let's all continue to look for ways to be fully human and stop othering each other. This is the first initial of our podcast, The Other, and we're going to continue to explore how the other and not accepting that, how bring in a form of human emergence. So the next Tuesday, that's all I'll focus on being more fully human. Thank you.
Thank you.